everyone. This is pretty exciting. I don't think I've ever seen this space quite so full. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the 2023 PCSB Dean Symposium. This is a co-sponsored event by the School of Business and the Shiriko Career Center, and I'll say a few more thank yous in a minute. But I wanted to thank all of you students, faculty, staff for coming out this afternoon. We're incredibly honored, and I'm sure you're thrilled, that we have with us Jill Pemberton, who is the Chief Financial Officer of LVMH, Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton North America. So please join me in an exceptionally warm friar welcome for Jill Pemberton. Jill Pemberton tops a list of impressive and inspirational business leaders who have in the past joined us for this symposium. Individuals such as Brian Moynihan, who is the CEO of Bank of America, Dr. Carolyn Wu of Catholic Relief Services, Carly Fiorina, former presidential candidate and CEO of Hewlett-Packard. Exactly 1 year ago today, actually, if it's a beautiful spring day in Rhode Island, we have the Dean's Symposium going on. Exactly 1 year ago today, we welcomed then America's president of EY, Kelly Greer. This event is one through which we invite inspirational C-suite leaders to explore our brand at the business school. It's a brand that is about business being a force for good in society. It's a brand about collaboration and teamwork. And through the event, we inspire our students with the example of exemplary leadership. This symposium helps guide us along a path toward becoming more impactful contributors in our professions, more supportive collaborators for our colleagues and teammates, and more engaged members of our community. I always leave these events energized and with new insight into what it takes to be a leader, and I hope that you will share in that feeling with me today. I want to thank many staff and faculty who provided support for the event, especially Liz Lombard from the Shiriko Career Center. This was Liz's inspiration. And a special welcome to Claire Aud-Starace. I hope I got the last name right. LVMH North America's Vice President of Communications and Corporate Social Responsibility. And she was very helpful in planning the event. And Jill's husband, Dennis Pemberton, who came along. My husband calls that being the cufflinks, and he's not always so excited about it. So we're grateful to you for taking the day and joining us. So I'm going to invite to the podium Providence College's Provost and Senior Vice President for Academic Affairs, Dr. Sean Reed, also a member of our Finance Department here at the PCSB, who will offer greetings on behalf of the college.
Thank you, Sylvia, and I will be very brief so we can get on with the show, but on behalf of President Faustin and Executive Vice President Ann Manchester-Molac, thank you all for being here today for this great event. Sylvia, I want to also recognize you. Thank you for your leadership in organizing this along with the Career Center. Every year, this is a great event to come to, and we carefully select the leaders that represent the values and the brand of Providence College. Jill, we're very excited to hear from you, and Dennis, thank you for making the trip with her. To all of the faculty, staff, and students from the PCSB and from across campus that are here today, thank you for making time for this great event. And Sylvia, back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Provost Reed. Today's symposium event features a facilitated conversation on a variety of topics: luxury and brand desirability, career pathways for early career professionals, sustainability and corporate social responsibility, and of course, all things finance. If you're a finance major, wave your hand. Have you been following the LVMH stock lately? Because if not, I recommend that you do. It's my pleasure to introduce our keynote and our student moderators. Jill Pemberton is Chief Financial Officer of LVMH, Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton North America. And in this role, she partners with the North America CEO and the leadership team on all financial and strategic objectives supporting the $20 billion region that is North America. And she serves as the main connection point to the company's global headquarters. Prior to joining LVMH, she held finance and marketing roles at Viacom, Johnson & Johnson, H.J. Heinz, and Delta Airlines. Jill holds an MBA from Harvard and a Bachelor of Arts in Economics from Yale University, where she narrowly missed being a student in one of my classes. I was on the faculty at that time. Moderating today's discussion are two current PCSB students, who I'm also thrilled to introduce, Abby Law and Santiago Naranjo Cano. Cano, or is there a tilde on the end? Okay, Najarro Cano, sorry. You wouldn't know I was fluent in Spanish. Abby is a junior finance major from Ave Maria, Florida, and co-founder and current vice president of the Providence College Finance Society's Risk Management Association. During the academic year, Abby is active with the Friars Club, gives campus tours, and in her free time, she enjoys theater and traveling. She's completed several internships while at PC, including with On Page Ideas in Romania and IDAP Global in London, and most recently with the prestigious Sapere Aude Consortium, where she conducted research on wealth inequality. This summer, she's going to be a global product strategy intern with BlackRock in New York City. Santiago, whose last name I butchered, is more easily referred to as Santi by many in our community. He's a junior marketing major and theater minor from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Santi is currently a community manager for the PCSB's Benjamin Family Social Media Fellowship Program, works as a cultural engagement assistant for the center at Moore Hall, and also serves as vice president of OLAS, the Organization of Latin American Students. He's an orientation leader and a mentor to first-generation BIPOC students through Horizons. He's also involved with Six Gents, a sketch comedy group. He's a tenor with Strictly Speaking a cappella, and is starring this season, including this weekend, in PC's production of Pippin. He's completed internships with Esperanza International, our own Trinity Repertory Theater Company here in Providence, Rhode Island Latino Arts, and he will be, eat your heart out, LVMH folks, he will be an intern at L'Oreal this summer in New York City. So please join me in another warm welcome for Jill and for Abby and for Santi.
Okay, well, hopefully that video gave us a little bit of insight.
See it. Sorry.
Well,
It was a wonderful video with over 75 brands that LVMH has, many of which you probably know of, but don't really know that LVMH owns.
yeah. Well, we're excited to hear more about you individually and your experience at LVMH. Thank you again for joining us. This is one of the most impressive Dean Symposium speakers we've ever had, so we're really honored to be sitting up here with you, and I think everyone's really excited to see what you have to say.
Yeah, but again, thank you so much. So it's an honor to share the stage with you and to share knowledge with everybody here, and it's just going to be incredible. But before we dive into your career, we'd love to hear a little bit about your personal story. Like, what was your background before business? We mentioned that in the bio, but like where you're from, where'd you study, and into that a little bit.
Great. So I grew up in Washington, D.C., and I was born in Washington, D.C., grew up in a town called Reston, Virginia, which is near Dulles Airport, for any of you in the DMV area. I have my mom was an educator. She had a degree in zoology, ended up getting her PhD in higher education, and then went and actually became an entrepreneur. So we can talk a little bit more about that, but she actually owned a Popeyes franchise, Popeyes Famous Fried Chicken. So in high school, I worked behind the counter and fried chicken and took orders, and it was the start of my finance career. My father worked for General Electric for over 30 years. He was a salesman in the appliance division, and I'm the youngest of 3 kids. I have an older sister and an older brother. That was kind of the early times. I went to Yale University, as you mentioned, and while I was at Yale, I was in a program called Inroads, which is a minority internship program, which is where I met Liz, and she was one of my first mentors and is a mentor to this day. So thank you very, very much for all you have done for me to get where I am today.
Well, as someone who once worked in a kitchen, I'm glad to know that you ended up as a CFO. And Liz has certainly been a mentor to a lot of PC students, so another thank you to her. Thank you for sharing your personal story a little bit. We'd love to hear more about your professional story as well. I know you started in the airline industry, went into consumer staples, manufacturing, entertainment, now luxury brands. So how did you end up at Moet Hennessy Louis Vuitton North America?
So as you mentioned, when I was at Yale, I was in Inroads program, and there was a company called TRW, which was an automotive and space and defense company. And so I worked with them all 4 summers when I was at Yale, and they offered me a position when I graduated. At the time, I also had a position to work for JP Morgan in New York, and so I was choosing between JP Morgan or moving to Cleveland, Ohio to work for TRW. All of my friends thought I was crazy because I was like, TRW's been great to me. And I knew right then that I wanted to work for companies that made things I could see, feel, touch, et cetera. And so instead of going to New York, I went to Cleveland, Ohio, and I worked for TRW for 2 years as a financial analyst. And then I knew I wanted to go back to business school, so I was fortunate to get into Harvard Business School, went back for 2 years, and then returned to TRW for a couple of years. My last job at TRW was as a finance manager in an airbag manufacturing facility outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Again, love the plant environment, really love to see how things get made, so that was a great job. Then I met Dennis, and he was transferred to Atlanta, Georgia, so we ended up getting engaged, moved to Atlanta, and that's when I started working for Delta Airlines. So I was at Delta for 10 years. It was fabulous. We love to travel. They have really good flight benefits, so it's really, really difficult to leave, but I'd been there for 10 years, and I was trying to decide what I wanted to do next, and we can talk about that as far as taking risks, but I said maybe this is an opportunity for me to do something different. I ended up getting a call from a headhunter about a job at H.J. Heinz. So that was kind of the first risk I took, and said, that would mean moving my family. At the time, we have 2 daughters, so they were, I think, around 6 and 8. But it was a great opportunity to do something different. Instead of finance, I was going to go work in the strategy department. So it gave me an opportunity to do something a bit different. So I said yes. I left Delta after 10 years, moved to Heinz, and was there for about a year. And then I had the opportunity to do an expat assignment in London. so another great opportunity to do something international. So we picked up and moved the family to London for 3.5 years, which was a great experience. And then Heinz was taken private by Warren Buffett and 3G Capital. And at the time, I decided to move back to the United States. I got a call from Johnson & Johnson and said, hey, we have a great opportunity for you. I started working for J&J in New Jersey and did that for almost 6 years and spent most of the time in the consumer business, focused on brands like Neutrogena, Johnson's Baby, Tylenol, all those wonderful consumer healthcare products. Again, really love to work for companies that make things that I can kind of see and feel. Then I got a call about an opportunity at Viacom, so did a little bit of switch, moved to New York, media industry, but that allowed me to really lead the corporate financial planning and analysis group for the whole company, which I thought was something that was a great opportunity. And then right at that time, Viacom and CBS re-merged, and I got another call from LVMH. And as you know, I love products, and so LVMH, some of the best products in the world, so I ended up taking this opportunity, actually during COVID in 2020. So that was very interesting, started in July 2020, and have almost been in my role for 3 years.
Wow, well, it's nice to hear. We're all students starting off our career. It's nice to hear where you start isn't where you end. So
Yes, very much so.
thanks for sharing that.
Yes, of course. Just to pivot to another question. As a person of color who is in the business industry, and as myself as a person of color as well, who's also heading into the business industry, how have you seen diversity act as a strength at LVMH?
Yeah, I mean, diversity is incredibly important. I think diversity means a lot of different things. One of the things it means at LVMH is we have a very diverse product offering. So we mentioned we have over 75 different brands, 5 key categories, everything from wines and spirits to fashion and leather goods, watch and jewelry, perfumes and cosmetics. We own Sephora, a retailer. So with that diversity, allows us to actually be able to perform very well, just like you've seen lately in the stock market. One of the reasons is because of the diversity and the breadth of the products that we have. It allows us to be a bit more nimble and manage the ups and downs, like we'll talk about in the recession that's coming. But that's one side of diversity. The other part of diversity is just the people within the organization, right? And so just like you said, one of our goals is really to increase the overall diversity of the company. And we have over 71% of our employees are women, which is fantastic. We still have a little bit of work to do on making sure that those women are really in the senior level positions. But we have done a lot of that over the last couple of years with one of our employee resource groups called LVMH, which is really focused on making sure that women are in leadership positions. We also just started 2 years ago LEAD, which is LVMH employees of African descent, to really focus on our Black and African American employees, and I'm the executive sponsor for that organization. And so again, one of our goals is to really continue to increase the level of diversity in the company so that we can make sure that we're getting the best, brightest ideas from everyone.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that diversity has certainly acted as a strength. As you mentioned, you guys did break a record yesterday, so congratulations on that. You guys became the first European company to reach a $500 billion market cap. So congratulations. But more on that, what do you think are the key factors that have led to the group's exceptional performance, especially in such an uncertain economic time?
Yes. Interesting. And it's interesting. So I joined in 2020, which is in the middle of COVID, as we mentioned, right? And so LVMH has a large retail footprint with all of our stores. So like everyone else, a lot of our stores were closed for a couple of months. We weren't sure kind of what the performance of the company was going to be. And then we realized after a couple of months that a lot of people were home. people didn't have anything to do. So a lot of our wealthy that didn't have anything to do and no place to go bought a lot of handbags and a lot of liquor. So if that was you, but in the, so really a lot of people, e-commerce is when that really took off. I think the conventional wisdom before that was, would people really want to buy luxury products if they can't feel it, see it, touch it, and have that experience? But we learned through COVID that people did, and obviously our e-commerce sales on our sites really rebounded. But really, I think LVMH did a really good job in that period between 2020, 2021 during COVID of continuing to invest in our brands and making sure that we were continuing to have collaborations with artists and to spend and really invest in the brands. And that showed through as people were continuing to buy our goods during COVID. Moet Hennessy obviously is a big liquor brand. And again, at that time, people were not drinking in the restaurants because they were closed. And so they were actually spending more money and trading up at home because they could buy that higher priced champagne or higher priced vodka or tequila or whatever it is. And so from that, our brands actually did much better. So that really drove a lot of our performance over the last couple of years. And then as stores started to open again, it just continued. As you mentioned, now we're coming into a period of a bit of a recession because most of our clientele is on the wealthier end. They might get hit a little bit later than kind of the average consumer. However, it is still a challenge, and so we continue to want to invest in our brands. We are diverse, as I mentioned, so the good thing about that is if one of our categories is maybe softer than the other, we're able to balance that out in the total. So as you saw, our first quarter results, globally we were up 17% in sales. In the US, we were still up 8% for the year, even though coming off a really strong year. But within our 5 different categories, some were slower, some were lower. So with that diversity, you're able to actually manage that a bit better. So going forward, I think like most companies, we're gonna figure out kind of if we actually do go into recession or what's going to happen. But we're continuing to be kind of cautiously optimistic going forward, and we'll adjust and see as we go.
Thank you. Wow, great answer.
Okay, thank you. So you were talking about in terms of like the terms feel, see, and touch. One of the questions that we have is that one of the phrases that LVMH has been associated with is passionate about creativity. So I think with those 2 phrases in mind, the feel, see, and touch, and passionate about creativity, a lot of people perceive finance often as the realm of like something that's more quantitative, like lacking creativity. But how does the motto feel, see, and touch and passionate about creativity play a role in the experience and your experience at LVMH?
Yeah, so as you said, one of our core values is around creativity and innovation, and that can take many different forms. So in the pure fashion sense, creativity is making sure that we're having the best products, we're coming up with new collections, we're coming up with new collaborations, and so from that business side, that's how people are being creative. On the finance side, we can still be creative as well, right? A lot of it is how do we find new ways to share insights so that we're helping the businesses continue to grow. So whether that's finding a more creative PowerPoint presentation that you can do to make sure that you're getting the insight to the business leaders, whether that's coming up and using new technology like Power BI or robotics or those types of things in the finance realm so that we can really make sure we're providing really good insights to the business leaders and helping them be creative. Also, finance is not just about being quantitative. Finance leaders are also business leaders, and so we're also able to add our thoughts and creativity to the creative side of the business, not just to the financial side.
Oh, really interesting. Usually, you don't want your accountants being too creative.
That's very true.
So I'm glad to know that it's more strategic than anything.
Exactly.
But Santi mentioned some of the words of LVMH, some words that they find very important. On a more personal side, are there any words that you find really important? Are there any words that you live by? Maybe a personal life motto, a favorite quote?
I think for me, it goes back to the golden rule, which is do unto others as they would do unto you. And so I really try to live by that and make sure that I'm treating people with the respect and the way that I would want to be treated as well. And so I think that's kind of the main rule that I would live by is the golden rule.
It's a great answer.
Awesome, thank you. And then to follow up as well, so again, it was mentioned that Abby and I will both have internships going into the summer. Again, sorry that I'm with the.
It's okay.
But,
we'll get you next summer.
Oh, okay, okay. So in terms of people who are looking for internships or having the internship process, what are some traits that you look for in an early career professional?
Yes, great question. I think early career professional, we look for someone that would have the core values that we do. We talked about kind of creativity and delivering with excellence, having an entrepreneurial spirit, and really wanting to have a positive impact on your community is kind of the key values of LVMH. Also, we look for someone who is really eager to learn. I think that's one of the most important things when you're just coming into your career. There's so much that you have to learn. So someone that's really open to that, someone that is a good team player. I know collaboration is one of the key values of Providence College, and that's true in the business world as well. You need to make sure your teamwork is very, very important to get anything done, and you need to make sure that you can do whatever it is to be a part of your team. So teamwork, eagerness, and really the values that you would agree with the company.
That's great to know as students who are applying to potential jobs at LVMH. Yeah, we have over there, is the anthem of kind of our PCSB, the
Yes.
power of we is what we like to say.
Yes.
So it's good to know that collaboration and teamwork is something you guys look for. Another thing that we talk a lot about at the PCSB is ESG,
Yes.
which obviously stands for environmental social governance.
Yes.
But what does ESG mean to sort of you personally and then LVMH as a whole?
Yeah, ESG is really important, obviously, to me as well as LVMH. As a European company, I think LVMH was probably a little further ahead than some of our US companies. We have some of our brands that have been around 150 years and have really had a focus on ESG, especially the environmental component, for a very long time. We were one of the first European companies to have an environmental group dating back to 1992. And I think luxury products in and of themselves, very high quality, last a really long time, made with the best products and ingredients. And so we take that to heart very much. And so one of the things we're really focused on is the environmental side, things like biodiversity, making sure that we reduce energy consumption just like everyone else, and really make sure that we're using the most sustainable products. And so it's something that we focus on a lot every day as we make sure that we can build the best products possible. On the social side, we're also really, what's really important to us is kind of a fair wage. We talk about our craftsmanship. Some of these folks have been doing their jobs a really long time, and so we make sure that we have the highest craftsmen available to make our products. So that's something that's really important to us, to make sure that we have the best products as well and the best people.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So another question we'd like to ask is just what is it like being a Black woman in business with such an influential, significant role?
It's a great question. Unfortunately, there's not enough of us, and so I think sometimes it is kind of lonely being in that position, and that's why I think it's really important that we continue to try to grow, mentor, and sponsor people of color so that there's not only me in the role. I know when I saw someone in a role that I wanted to achieve, that helped me believe that I can achieve it. So I'm sure I've been told there's many people who say me being in this role is an inspiration because they can look and say, that's something that I can achieve as well. And I recognize that, and I do whatever I can, like being here today, to really try to make sure that there's many, many more of me in these roles and do what we can to mentor and support people of color.
No, 100%. And I think, again, I want to give it a little shout out to Liz as well. We have a connection that Liz and I are both of our mentors, and I'm very grateful for Liz being our mentor and having that network and connection. So using the network and stuff like that will create not only like to benefit like, you know, us as people of color, but like benefit just like anybody here, anyone who's listening here, anyone who's watching here. And I think that's very important.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you definitely serve as a role model to all the PCSB students sitting in here, not only as women of color, but just as a woman. And as you mentioned, at LVMH, 71% of your employees are women. And I was wondering if you could expand on that and maybe tell us how you think that affects your company culture and how that maybe serves as a sort of advantage to the company in its performance or in its culture.
Yeah, no, as we said, it is a large portion of our population is women. Not surprising, a large portion of our client base is women as well, which is great. But again, it's something that we continue to try and focus on and make sure that we're actually making sure that those women are in leadership positions as well, right? I mean, you need diversity at the top. Everyone has a different skill set. Women will bring something different to the discussion than men will, and I think it's something that we just need to continue to focus on.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Thank you. So I think another question, and this is, so I'm a marketing major, so I'm going to ask a little bit of a marketing question and such. So obviously, LVMH, there are a lot of luxe brands out there, luxury brands. So what makes the value of an LVMH product so sought after? And how does that translate into the marketing and what it does?
Yeah, I think it's sought after because it's really very high quality products that are a bit exclusive sometimes. So it's something that it's called brand desirability, and people, you know, really enjoy the products, the experience of having the product, and the collaborations that we talked about that we have with many designers and collaborators. It makes it so the products are really desirable. And so I think from a marketing perspective, we try and do that in several ways. Obviously, you have different collections that come 2 or 3 times a year, and once those are gone, then you want the newness again. So it brings back consumers to say, okay, now I want something new. And it's a way to continue to market your product. And yeah.
Awesome. And then just like personally, what is your favorite LVMH product?
I can say I like a lot of them. I'm wearing Dior today, so I will say Dior is probably in general my favorite.
Awesome. Any like specific like? Just
Also,
curious.
the champagne is really good. So I would say those two.
Well, you touched a little bit upon what it's like working as women at LVMH and the consumers being a lot of women. And I wanted to ask about being a mother specifically. Perhaps the only career more challenging than being a CFO is being a mom. And so I wanted to ask how family has played a role in your personal success and your professional success at LVMH.
That's great. Families played a big role. As you said, we have 2 daughters. Obviously, my husband is here today, which is fantastic. And you know, because he has his own business, we've been able and been fortunate enough to move around. So I have a great partner that has allowed us to be able to move to London or move to New York or move to New Jersey. So I think that's something that has enabled us to do that. We have 2 girls. One is a junior at the University of Miami, studying marine affairs, and the other is a senior at Wesleyan University down the road in Connecticut and is a film major. And so, yes, it has been having 2 college girls is a bit of a challenge, but it's been great, and we've had help along the way. Obviously, you know, you can't have two executives or parents that have jobs and not have some help along the way. And so we've had family members that have helped out. We've had friends. We've had au pairs along the way. And so I think you try to do the best you can as parents. And you, I don't know if there is a thing as work-life balance, but you make it work and you're there for the most important things and you try and figure it out.
Yeah. Family is a big deal here at Providence. We like to say we're part of the Fryer family. So.
Yes, very much so.
I think I can't stop thinking about the term that you were using, the feel, see, and like touch. Can you like expand on that more and like how that relates to the products and how that works
Yes.
with your work?
Well, it's funny. So the first time Liz asked me to speak here, one of the topics was around just finance in general. And I think a lot of folks, maybe you guys in college, think finance is going to be either investment banking, I'm going to go to Wall Street and I'm going to do investment banking, or maybe I'll go to a Big Four and do accounting. But from a corporate company perspective, there's so much more about finance. You can work in sales and marketing finance and really work with the marketing leaders and determine how to spend your marketing investment dollars, whether that's on social media or is it in your retail environment. There's so many different ways. You could do supply chain finance, and you can work in a factory and really work to see how the product is being made. You can work in treasury and understand kind of how you finance M&A deals. You can work in strategy. There's so many different avenues for finance. And so for me, I wanted to be in a company that I could see that I put the product on the shelf. So whether that was J&J, and we were going through a whole new redesign of the Johnson's Baby product. And so then you can look up one day, go into the product and go into the store and say, hey, I actually had an impact on what the price of that product was going to be, because I was working with the innovation team and we were trying to figure out how much it costs to make the product and then what we should sell it for, and then you see it on the shelf. So for me, that was always something that was really kind of inspiring versus financial services to me, I know that is more like numbers on a piece of paper. So I've been tried to be pulled into financial services a couple of times in my career, and it just doesn't inspire me as much as working for companies that really make things.
It sounds like you're really passionate about that, and we can see that. I know that LVMH does have some really impressive early career programs.
Yes.
And I'm sure a lot of people here are thinking about their early careers. So would you like to expand anything upon those?
We do, and so there's a program called Inside LVMH. So you can literally just go on InsideLVMH.com, and it really helps you to learn about the fashion industry, learns about LVMH, there's speakers, there's an opportunity for you to just learn more about the company. We also have a lot of internship opportunities available. So if you go on LVMH.com, look under careers, and you'll be able to find what positions are actually out there and posted. But we also have a campus relations team, and so if anyone is interested in an internship opportunity or a full-time job, definitely reach out and let me know. But definitely go to the LVMH, go to Inside LVMH as well as our website and look under our careers.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. So I just had like another question regarding, I don't know, just another like little fun, like personal question. What do you think is like the best part of the job? Like day to day, what do you think is the best part of your job when it comes to working?
So the best part of my job, because I work at the regional team level, I get to work with almost all of those brands that we have. So one day I'm helping to purchase a new winery in Napa. We just purchased a winery called Joseph Phelps Vineyard. So I worked with our Moet Hennessy team on that one day. The next day, we're launching a new champagne brand with Jay-Z called Armand de Brignac, which we now have a part ownership in that brand. The next day, we're working on our perfumes and cosmetics brand. So because at the regional level I work with all the brands, I really enjoy that. Versus kind of necessarily just working with Louis Vuitton or Dior. Yeah. You really get to work with a lot of great people and learn a lot about a lot of different brands.
I think that's like incredible. Like the Jay-Z thing, like that's awesome. But it's like also just like you have such a, on the subject of diversity we were talking about, you have such a, like, would you say that every day is different in terms of when you're working?
Yes, generally every day is different. Obviously, as a finance leader, we're coming up to the end of April, so we're going to start closing the books for the month. And you have the typical routine that you do every month end and every quarter and forecast periods and things like that. But what you're actually working on is very different depending on the day. A lot of it is also managing a team. Obviously, having a leader, I have a team, and so I spend a lot of time making sure that we have the right people in the organization, on the team, and that they're developing and they're getting what they need and the resources they need to be able to get the job done.
Awesome. I have another one, sorry. But like, in terms of like, again, you talked about, and we talked about that PCSB has like, we talked about the power of we with team. How is it like being in a team, but also managing the team as well when it comes to that?
Yeah, so as you said, team is very important, and you can't get anything done at all without a team. And so different levels of team. I'm on my boss's leadership team for overall North America, so that's myself on finance, but we have a head of HR, we have a head of legal, we have a head of ethics and compliance, and we talk about and act as a team for anything that's happening within the region. But then I have my own team, and we have tax and treasury and accounting, and we need to make sure that everyone is working together when we're going to buy a company or when we're closing the books for the quarter, that everyone has the right information. So working with a team and making sure that you're sharing information and you're being transparent is really the only way to get things done.
That's awesome, yeah.
Thank you so much. So more on the family front, we were wondering if you could speak more about how being at LVMH has maybe impacted how you've saved some space for your family and for your personal time. Something that people frequently talk about is like treat yourself. Liz has told us that you frequently like to do that. So how has that played a role in your career and in your personal life?
So I think there's a question also just on, probably, I know we had a question on self-care, or how do you make sure that you are managing outside of work and managing the stress. I love sports, so I spend a lot of my weekends watching sports, a lot more than playing, but so that's a de-stressor for me. I also really exercise, so I make sure I take the time. Luckily, living in the city, I wanted to make sure we lived close to work, so I actually walk to work every day, which is great, so I can get my exercise in. And then make sure to just get enough sleep. And on the weekends, really try and spend time with family and friends and really try and enjoy it. I mean, I think one of the things as you guys are looking at roles to go into, I was speaking to a person a couple of days ago who I mentor, and she asked to meet with me. And she's probably 3 years out of college. And she said, I'm having a really difficult time. I'm working 100 hours a week. I want to go back to graduate school, but I can't because I can't find the time to actually study for the GMAT to go back to school. It's not the right environment for me. Now, kind of, what do I do? So just as you're going into those roles, also think about kind of what type of life that you want. Yes, you're young and you can work those 100 hours, but a week, and probably not for long, but just make sure you think about as you're selecting the jobs that you want to go into, kind of what type of life and environment do you want.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned grad school. I know a lot of kids are looking at grad school here, and we do have a grad program. Mm-hmm. What did the Harvard Business School specifically give you, and would you recommend going to grad school for a lot of these undergraduate students?
Yes, I mean, for me, it was a great experience. Actually, that's where I met my husband, Dennis. He was at HBS as well. But it was a great experience, even though I knew I wanted to do and was doing finance before, and then I came out, so I wasn't like a total switch of a career. It just gives you the skill set to be able to how you think strategically. That was one of the first classes that I really enjoyed around operations and really being able to understand kind of the supply chain and the operations environment. And with the case method, you get a lot of opportunity to kind of try out different things and how you would do things in a real world environment. And so I think it just provides you a background of a skill set. So I still think it is It's a good to have. It's definitely not for everyone. You definitely don't need it, but I thoroughly enjoyed my 2 years experience at HBS.
Awesome, thank you. So we do have a Q&A section after, but before we get into the Q&A section, are there any final remarks you'd like to make to the audience?
No, I don't think so.
Get into the Q&A
I think we
section?
said a lot, no.
So we're going to open it up now to questions, but first I wanted to give a little round of applause. You guys did a great job moderating. Seamless. I know, Santi and Abby, that you practiced a little bit, so very proud. Do we have microphones? So we've got a microphone up here. We are recording this, so I would ask that you do try to come up to the mic if you've got a question. Any questions? If you're up in the gallery, I can repeat a question if I can hear it.
There's one over there.
Yeah.
Lee. I'm sorry, I just can't hear you. She's like,
Could you mind walking up to the mic?
Sorry about that. So I know you spoke about LEAD at LVMH, and I know that like when I interned at my company last summer, I made sure to find spaces where I felt comfortable in the company. So do you mind like talking a little bit more about that program at LVMH?
Sure. Most companies will have what's called employee resource groups. Just like you said, there's opportunity for people to find space and to connect with either we have a women's group, we have the Black employee group, we have a Hispanic employee group, we've got LGBTQ group, and it's really an opportunity for people to be able to connect and find space. And so we formed the LEAD group, as I said, a couple of years ago, and it's really to help retain, inspire Black employees within the organization. So we just started a mentoring program. So I mentor 4 kind of mid-level African American women, and kind of we talk about things like work-life balance, or what is it that I need to do to get ahead, what did you do in your career, can you provide some advice? And so we've had 3 sessions so far, and we have 1 more to go. And it's just be able to provide kind of, as you said, that networking opportunity, and also to be able to learn from each other so that we can continue to grow and progress.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, over here, Professor DeFonte.
Hi, Jill.
Yes,
Mark
hi.
DeFanti. Thanks so much for coming.
You're welcome.
So in business schools, we've seen a migration from a strict focus on brand equity to now a focus on customer equity, or in combination. Has LVMH done that as well? And if so, what could you tell this room at a granular level, introductory, on why it would be important if they saw it in a textbook?
Got it. So brand meaning, maybe just brand meaning product, and customer being, you said customer.
Brand value,
Right.
like the Coca-Cola's brand values in the
yes.
billions, but one customer's equity.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and I think it's important. I think that goes to how LVMH is very specific on clienteling and kind of what the value is of that client. So yes, as you said, the overall brand equity of the LVMH brand, or the Louis Vuitton or the Dior brand, is very important. But we've done a lot to be able to make sure that we understand the value of a particular a particular customer, and we have definitely different customer segments, whether that's the high-end customer, the aspirational customer, and so we are focused on what all of that brings to the equation. Especially in luxury, we do a lot of focus on specific high-value clients and ultra high, and what do we need to do to that customer versus an aspirational customer that comes in and might buy your product one time. It's mostly a logo product. They're just now getting into it. And so there's a lot of focus with LVMH on understanding the value of that different consumer. You're welcome.
Have you ever, has LVMH ever shed a brand?
That is a great question. So since what I know, the only brand that we've really sold is Donna Karan. So Donna Karan was a brand that we had, that we sold. But the slight difference in LVMH and being, it is a public company, but it's also owned principally by the Arnault family. And because of that, they're really able to take a much longer term view. And so, you know, we hear a lot about companies that have to perform quarter to quarter, and you hear some companies that are taken private so that they don't have to have that pressure of being able to perform on a quarterly basis. But even though LVMH is a public company, the mindset is much more on a longer term value. And so many of the brands that we've had, you know, may have taken a couple of years to actually reach profitability, but we have the time to do that because of the company that we have and because of how long the company is. So we tend to take a much longer view than traditional companies.
Interesting. We have time for at least another.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Gia Vea. I just wondered if you have like any advice for the young Black women in the crowd, you know, because I would love, your lifestyle is very inspiring to hear, and it's been an honor to hear you talk about it. So if you have any advice.
The one piece of advice I would give to you or anyone else that I learned a little is to speak up. A lot of times we're the only one in the room, and so you might feel as though what you're going to say is, you might be hesitant to say it. Is it the right thing? How am I going to, if I'm going to be judged? And so earlier in my career, I didn't speak up as much as I should have. I would sit in the room and say, I know the answer to the question, or I have something to add. And then I wouldn't, because I wasn't sure how that would be perceived, et cetera. And so I would say from very early on, if you're in the room for a reason, and you have some value to add, and to make sure you speak up.
I need to get that tattooed.
Yeah.
We talk about that a lot, I think, as instructors. Step forward. You know, it's important to know to step forward, and for some of you for whom it's easy to step forward, it's important to think about when to step back, so that you leave the space
That's
for
right.
others to step forward.
That's very true.
And I know I, as an instructor, we talk about that in discussion section.
That's very true.
Well, this has been just terrific, very inspiring to me, I think to many of us in the audience. So grateful to you, Jill, for making the time, and again to Liz for her inspiration. She made a time with me late last August and came in with a larger smile than she usually has, and said, I have an idea. And so it's really exciting to see that idea come to fruition. So please join me once again in thanking the Pembertons and our moderators. Thank you for being a patient audience, and I wish you a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you.